just moving on to our esteemed panel of speakers, we're delighted to be joined today by a number of guests, special guests. I would like to start with you, Sheikh Ali. Would you like to introduce yourself, and we'll move on to the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. My name is Ali Adhani. I'm the CEO of IPA Qatar. Thank you.
Bassam Hash Hamad, Country Senior Partner for PwC Qatar.
Ajid Khan, I lead the Tax and Legal Services for PwC in Qatar. Thank you.
Rashid Al-Naimi, Manager of Investor Relations in the Investment Promotion Agency.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mohammed Al-Atawi, Tax Partner in PwC Qatar.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nasser Al-Tawil. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Qatar Financial Centre and Chief Legal Officer.
Hi, everyone. Badr Shaheen Al-Kuwari, Director of Tax Treaties and International Cooperation at General Tax Authority.
Naif Al-Suwaidi, I'm Directing Regulations in Qatar Free Zones Authority.
Shukran. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to our agenda. So we've got a packed agenda for you today. We're going to be opening with Bassam Hajmahad, who is our Qatar Senior Country Partner for Qatar PwC Qatar office. And as you can see, the agenda is going to run right through with sessions from Hamad, sessions from Sajid, and also our panelists are going to give you some great insights and some debates around doing business in Qatar and investing into Qatar. We then move on to a moderated Q&A with your questions. So please, as I said, put them into the chat box, and then we'll have some closing remarks by Sajid Khan. Over to you, Bassam.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you all for joining us today on the launch of our Doing Business Guide in collaboration with the Investment Promotion Agency in Qatar. We really hope this session brings you key insights around the opportunities for operating and investing in this exciting and fast-growing economy. As you all know, businesses now need to change more rapidly than ever before to attract and retain capital, talent, and clients. And this guide we developed has been designed with this in mind, to enable new investors coming into Qatar to better understand the rules and regulations of this local market and make the best out of the increasing opportunities available in Qatar to build and grow their businesses. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our esteemed speakers and panelists who join us today from IPA Qatar, General Tax Authority, Qatar Free Zone, and QFC. With this, I would like to pass it to Sheikh Ali bin Walid Al Thani, CEO of IPA Qatar, for his keynote remarks.
Thank you, Bassam. Appreciate the introduction. I will be very brief in these remarks. I'd like to first, on behalf of the Investment Promotion Agency, to welcome everyone to the launch of our new tax and legal guide to doing business in Qatar, and take this opportunity to thank our key partner, PwC, and our esteemed experts and colleagues from the General Tax Authority, Qatar Financial Centre, Qatar Free Zones Authority to join us today and explore the recent tax, legal, and regulatory developments in Qatar. With Qatar's rapidly evolving business ecosystem, we are delighted to release this tax and legal guide with PwC Qatar that highlights the significant strides that have been taken to doing business in Qatar. Today, Qatar benefits from facilities and ownership, diversity of business opportunities, and a competitive tax system with world-class infrastructure. The guide underlines the remarkable efforts of Qatar to position the nation as an attractive investment destination in the region. This event is timely due to its context with a rapidly evolving tax and regulatory environment in Qatar and discussions globally on a global minimum tax in various forums. To conclude, I'm sure the discussions will be informative and share great insights by our participants. And again, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good
Over
morning,
to you,
everyone.
Hamad.
Thank you, Caroline. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. We will be highlighting in this presentation a few points on the value proposition that Qatar brings, and mainly to answer the question why Qatar and why it remains and continues to be a destination for. Next slide, please. So to go over the agenda for today, first of all, we will be introducing you to the investment promotion agency, why Qatar and the Qatar value proposition, and then also we will touch on how the IPA can help international investors. Next slide, please. So to introduce you to the investment promotion agency, the IPA Qatar is a recently formed agency that was established in July of 2019. We've been actively promoting investments alongside a network of organizations such as the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Qatar Free Zones Authority, Qatar Financial Centre, Qatar Science and Technology Park. And we do that in promoting the Invest Qatar brand, also promoting the world-class infrastructure that Qatar has. Next slide, please. So in here, we want to touch upon why Qatar and what's the value proposition that Qatar brings to international investors. So in here, we look at 4 categories that Qatar brings in its value proposition. One is the stable and resilient economy. Qatar's economy has been and has shown that it is a resilient economy over the recent issues like blockade and so on. When it also comes to the business climate, Qatar offers a very pro-business climate, competitive regimes in terms of taxation, incentives, immigration support, as well as one in investment security, and also the government vision to that is backed by investment. So just to touch again on the market connectivity that Qatar brings, Qatar is quite connected, and we like to think this that Qatar is connected across 3 categories. One is digital infrastructure, having being one of the first countries to have the 5G network in Qatar in the world, and also being connected to 160 plus destinations through the airport, and also the extensive international trade agreements that Qatar enjoys and have. And also, then we want to touch upon the vibrant knowledge ecosystem and rich culture. So in here, we touch upon why Qatar and what's the value proposition that Qatar brings. And we see fiscal incentives, that is a regulatory regime, as well as the support for expat labor. So in terms of fiscal incentives, Qatar offers 100% foreign ownership in all sectors, which is quite unrivaled in the GCC region. We also have the 10% corporate tax rate, which might be subject to changes depending on the global minimum tax law and how it evolves in the future. We also have 0 tax on personal income, no restrictions on profit repatriation, no quantitative quotas on imports, and so on. When it comes to the regulatory regime, Qatar has double taxation treaties with more than 80 countries so far. Ownership in Qatari shareholding companies is also possible. And also it's possible for investors to transfer ownership among investors. We also have alternative dispute resolution that's based on the English common law and the international courts. When it comes to also the support for expat laborers, we have permanent residency opportunities for expat laborers, visa-free and on-arrival entry to 80 plus destinations, nationalities, and also planned legal provisions for retirements of expat workers. We also have the minimum wage and wage protection laws. And next slide, please. In here, we want to touch upon some of the evolving sectors in Qatar and where we see investment opportunities. To look at the infrastructure and logistics sector, there is one sector. We have financial services, entertainment, tech, advanced manufacturing. When it comes to infrastructure and logistics, Qatar has recently signed with DHL to host the logistics hub. Also seeing institutions to provide financial. UBS, the Swiss bank, who announced its expansion to Qatar last year. Also seeing companies in tech like Huawei and also Palantir Technologies. Next slide, please. So in here, we want to conclude with the services that the IPA provides and how we can help investors. We provide information on the business and regulatory environment, information on investment opportunities, in addition to connections to the relevant organizations in the ecosystem, and also support for investors from setup to facilitation of incentives. You can find my contact details here. Please feel free to reach out to me. I apologize if there had been any issues with sound, but we will be able to address any questions you have if you email me on this email. And also, we will be circulating this presentation to you. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Hamid. Again, a very warm welcome to everybody who has joined us this afternoon. I think continuing with the theme of some of the keynote addresses at the beginning and what Hamid sort of summarized, I'll continue giving a little bit of an insight into, what the guide is about. Clearly, the intention is not in the next few minutes to actually download or summarize every aspect of the guide, because a lot of effort and collaboration has gone into putting this guide together to make sure that all the prospective, existing, and future investors and stakeholders actually get a very good snapshot of the efforts that Qatar are putting in order to make Qatar as a choice of destination for investment and doing business. What I would intend to do is to just give a snapshot of where we are in the journey, what we've covered as a high-level overview. Say a few things about the guide so that you can actually go and read, which you will get a copy of as a follow-up to this session. And then you can see that it covers in quite a bit of detail, and I'll share a little bit of an insight on how we've collectively as a team approached it. And then also share some quick thoughts around what you could expect in the very near future, because obviously this is a dynamic process and journey, and it wouldn't stop where are we today. So with that kind of introduction, if we can move first. So I had the benefit of being in Qatar during the last 15 years. So I have a first-hand experience of not only working as part of PwC, being a stakeholder in the business environment and the community, but also looking at and advising investors who've been coming in. So I have a first-hand experience from a personal and professional perspective on how much Qatar has covered over these last 10 or 15 years. I think I'm quite fairly comfortable in saying that things that would take decades, Qatar had tried to short circuit them in a much shorter period of time, where we were 10, 15 years ago and where we are today. The overall theme has been always around a very streamlined reform across a very broad spectrum of areas. And I think it's been a continuous process across the board, not just in any one particular area, because obviously the businesses are affected by a very whole dynamic and a broad spectrum of laws and regulations, which will affect different parts of the business depending upon which sector of the economy you are investing in. And I think there has been a dramatic journey with regards to sort of ease of doing businesses, which has been at the heart of Qatar's strategy clearly over the last 10, 15 years. So what has happened in the last 10, 15 years? I think there has been a gradual, and I'm not going to go through each part of the legal improvement or structural improvement that's happened, but in a very broad sense of how businesses can come and set up, and the choices and the flexibility has increased over time. And you will hear from some of the panelists and the stakeholders where we are today. The other theme, broadly, changes were to update and expand the sort of various tax laws and other related regulations, whether they were in the commercial companies law, whether they were in relation to agencies, sponsorship, immigration, and I think a number of them have already been pointed out by Hamad in his snapshot as well. Immigration and sponsorship becomes very important in the context of human capital and bringing manpower, labor, resources, etc. And I think this is an area which has seen a lot of changes and improvement over the last few years. Also, the ownership laws, which again has been a historical context within the GCC, and Qatar is no exception, where you need mandatory participation from locals historically. There has been a gradual improvement and relaxation, not just in the listed sector, but also in the non-listed sector, where today you can actually set up. There are many, many choices and options with regards to setting up wholly owned entities in specific sectors and under specific jurisdictions. So that's kind of been the journey. Where are we today? If we can move to the next slide, please. So I think just in terms of saying a little bit about where we are today, because the guide is a snapshot of what the developments are as of today, what the investors can kind of look at. I think it is very important to say that as part of the sort of 2030 vision, increasing sort of the human capital and attracting foreign investment remains one of the key pillars of Qatar's diversification strategy. Yes, it still remains largely the sort of hydrocarbon remains one of the sort of key pillars of the economic growth and the agenda, but obviously diversification is very also high on the agenda as well. And I think it's fair to say that the blockade of Qatar served as a massive additional catalyst for the country to accelerate the reform agenda based on the sort of self-reliance and also enhancing Qatar's need, because necessity is the mother of innovation and reform. And I think that actually provided impetus to this whole of how we can attract more foreign businesses to come in Qatar, what are the challenges they are facing, and how we can employ various tools available within the state and some of the special regimes who could work collaboratively to accelerate and enhance this agenda. And I think that was a very welcome thing. And we saw that there was a massive influx of investors and businesses to coming in and restructure themselves and set themselves up in Qatar from 2017 onwards. Obviously, the COVID brought different sets of challenges. So what you will see in the guide, I will share some key bullet point and heights, but the guide has also gives you a snapshot for what Hamad said with regards to the overall economic proposition of Qatar as a state, where its economy is heading, what we see as the GDP aspirations in terms of growth coming out of the COVID and the economy rebounding. Obviously, the price of oil and gas and how the Qatar's plans are with regards to its LNG will feature into that, also provides a very positive and optimistic outlook, and plus some mega events happening next year. Everybody knows sort of FIFA, there is going to be quite a bit of impetus behind the economy. Now, in terms of the tax and legal regulatory landscape, it provides a very broad snapshot of what investors can look for and what choices and flexibility exist. All the legal and regulatory developments that have happened recently in various spaces around employment, immigration, sponsorship, as well as in different regimes and how they are flexing their muscles to complement Qatar as a choice of destination. Some of the key highlights you will see is that obviously there has been continuous reform in commercial companies law, and not just in the state, but also in the special regimes. Also, ease of doing business means that you have less bureaucracy, less red tape, and you can get things done easily, quicker from a single platform. And I think single window initiative would be a massive boost to that. And we already started to see the impact of that in practice. Obviously, the special regimes are also complementing the state to play their part in enhancing the attractiveness of Qatar, and Qatar Financial Centre and Qatar Free Zones Authority are going to play a massive part. And you already when you will hear from them on what they are doing in terms of enhancing this proposition. So they will play a key role going forward. I think the establishment of the General Tax Authority was also a major milestone in the last couple of years, so that they can actually reform the tax agenda, which obviously is another important aspect for investors to take care of, and how they can move towards digital compliance, paperless economy, and providing a single platform to do that. So you will see all these reforms being captured and highlighted in the guide when you see it. Just to say a few words in closing remarks, that as I said, that this is not an end of the journey. So if you can move to the next slide, please. This is a dynamic process. Qatar is not going to stop for what it has achieved. Its aspirations go far and beyond, and therefore this journey that we have just talked about is not going to stop. What can we expect in the near future? Obviously, Qatar is a responsible member of international community and sort of global business community. So whatever initiatives are coming around from the globe, they will have an impact on what would happen to the tax legal landscape in Qatar going forward. And also some of the domestic or the regional agenda will also have an impact. So Qatar has committed as part of the GCC to introduce VAT. So obviously that will have an impact. Qatar government will choose the timing. Obviously they've been conscious of the blockade as well as the sort of COVID impact. So Qatar will choose the right time on when to sort of, obviously the preparations have been made with regards to legislative developments, with regards to infrastructure, people, systems, but the timing I think is quite critical, and government will decide when to do that. The second thing, which some of the speakers have already mentioned, is that there is a global initiative under OECD sponsored by G20 with regards to what is called base erosion profit shifting, famously known as Pillar 2, which is called global minimum tax, which means that countries who have either no taxes or low taxes might have to increase and raise it to a minimum tax. This is going to introduce some kind of reform in the whole of region. Qatar will not be an exception. But I think the good thing is that Qatar already has an established tax system, which has a 10% tax rate, which investors are known and used to. So therefore, I think the change will be much more smoother, and I expect manageable in Qatar compared to some of the neighbors where they are largely devoid of taxes. I think the second comment, which also makes quite sense, is it will create a level playing field, that you will not have massive variations where, you know, you have countries who are the tax will become a much more level playing field because of global minimum tax. So the innovation will come from how you can create much more innovation and ease of doing business to remain competitive and attractive. I think the agenda of digital compliance will continue. There is obviously much talk in the region, and Qatar is no exception, on digital or e-invoicing, and continue to work in that direction. I think FIFA will have a massive impact in terms of influx of investors coming in, and there will be developments. Some of them have already happened with regards to tax incentives and other incentives to facilitate this landmark event happening in Qatar in a successful way. So watch that space, because a lot of developments will happen in relation to that. And lastly, in order to conclude, I think there are ongoing initiatives globally with regards to financial transparency, tax transparency, ownership of funds, and where the money is coming from. And therefore, this reform agenda with regards to making sure that you are not only competitive internationally, but also that you are complying with the international norms and regulations which are expected from a responsible country, which again, I see as a positive for investors, because you want to invest in a country which is seen as a responsible member of international community is a great thing. And I think Qatar will continue its strides in this space as well. So I think we are quite excited as a team to put this guide out to you, and we will obviously be looking forward to when people have a view of it, and we will look forward to your feedback. So I'll conclude it there, and Caro, back to you for Mohammed Atawi to sort of move into the panel discussion.
Thanks, Sajid. Over to you, Mohammed.
Hi, and again, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Sajid. So now we'll go for the moderation meeting. First, I'd like to introduce again the panelists. So I have Mr. Nasser Tawil from Qatar Financial Centre, We have Mr. PwC Kawari from the General Tax Authority. We have Mr. Naif Swedi from the Qatar Free Zones Authority, and Sajid Khan, PwC. So let me start by my first question to Mr. Badr. And my first question to you, Mr. Badr, would be why invest in Qatar? Why we need to choose Qatar as potential investors?
Thank you, Mohammed. I'm extremely honored and particularly delighted to participate with you on behalf of the General Tax Authority of the State of Qatar in this important event. I therefore thank the Investment Promotion Agency and PricewaterhouseCoopers for taking such initiative. So while hoping that it will be followed by many other events that will, I'm sure, strengthening Qatar place as a state that encourages and protects economic enterprises and investment. Indeed, all the factors are there for the foreign investors to invest safely in Qatar. The tax regime in force in Qatar is only one factor among many, in which, in my opinion, are more decisive in the choice of investment. And I dare say that many foreign investors invest in Qatar, even in the absence of tax exemptions and reductions. Qatar is boasting a good or even an excellent investment climate. The real drivers for foreign investment exist in Qatar's infrastructure, education, and security. One of the first things investors look for is a stable and transparent investment environment. And Qatar is one of the few markets in the region that are known for stability and well as transparent tax laws, which makes it fairly easier for business to plan and manage their environments, especially now with the existence of IPA, the International Promotion Agency, and the reduction of the administrative procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Badr. That's very useful. And let me give the second question to Mr. Nasser Tawil. So, Mr. Nasser, in your opinion, what is Qatar doing to attract investments?
Hi, Mohammed. Thank you very much for having me. It's a very good question, to be honest, and answering it is quite lengthy, but I'll try to keep it to a few minutes just to give a brief of what Qatar is doing in respect of attracting investment. So, first of all, this is not something that happened by coincidence to the state of Qatar. The government of the state of Qatar has been very much focused on attracting businesses for the past 15-20 years. So if you look at it from a legal perspective, for example, you will notice that in 2005, for example, or the slogan that the Qatar has put out to the world is "We mean business and we're open for business." So you will find, just to mention a few, you will find that Qatar has established something called the Qatar Science and Technology Park in 2005, which is a free zone for research and development. Qatar has established the Qatar Financial Centre, which is a special zone for financial services and commercial services. Qatar has established the Free Zones Authority in 2017, and Qatar has established lately the Media City as an attractive or as a hub for media companies in the state of Qatar. The state also has created the Investment Promotion Agency, which amongst other things is interested in incentivizing certain sectors of the economy and promoting them to the external world. We have been updating our laws regularly and very vigorously, to be honest, over the past few years. So you will find one of the latest developments is that to deepen the capital markets in the state of Qatar, the cap of non-Qatari ownership has been lifted in all companies. So non-Qataris are now enabled to or allowed to own up to 100% of the share capital of listed companies. Real estate, for example, is another sector that Qatar has really been very open to welcome international investors to put their money and place them in the state of Qatar by opening many new locations and cities for an ownership. Throwing on top of this a visa regime that allows basically non-Qataris to have a permanent visa in the state of Qatar. There has been some changes also to the laws regarding investment of non-Qataris in the local market, also relaxing certain provisions, allowing for more sectors to be opened up for international investors. More importantly, to be honest, I think also that the seriousness of the government in terms of enhancing its tax regime, its AML and anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism is such an important factor for attracting investors and making them feel very safe in the state of Qatar. We have seen numerous laws being passed in the past 2-3 years, to be honest, with respect to combating the money laundering and the financing of terrorism. And this, if it sends anything, it sends a message that the state of Qatar is very much open and it really means business and it's very determined to attracting international investors.
Thank you, Nasser. I think this is very insightful. And let me ask you, Sajid, my third question, to reflect on what Mr. Badr and what Mr. Nasser said. So, Sajid, what Qatar could do more in the regulatory legal space to make itself more attractive to investors, and what can we expect?
Thank you, Mohammed. I think Nasser and Badr has covered in quite a bit of detail on the efforts that are already being made, and we still hopefully will hear from Naif as well on how Qatar Free Zone is complementing all that. But like I said in my sort of towards the ending of my last session, that this is a dynamic journey. The international developments are not going to stop. They are happening as we speak, and therefore it will have an impact on Qatar, and therefore Qatar cannot stop. The other thing is that the regional competition is going to intensify. It's not only Qatar who's trying to do this. Everybody else is also trying to attract foreign investment and have diversification targets and goals. I think the support and the focus that the government has put on this point as a single agenda, and I think this is what Nasser was also emphasizing, gives me the encouragement, being one of the stakeholders here, that this is not going to stop. I think Qatar's ambitions go well beyond its weight and size, and it's got the both the political will and the financial muscle to make it happen. So I think those are the factors that I think investors can also take on board. There is a national and political will to put Qatar not just on the international stage, but as a stable, resilient, attractive economy. And then it also has the financial means to be able to support that. And we saw during very, very difficult times of blockade, etc., Qatar was very resilient in the face of very stiff circumstances and successfully came out. So I think there is a track record here that if we can pull the economy out in difficult circumstances, now that we come out of COVID, now we go into successful FIFA, and if we continue with the liberalization and flexibility agenda, I think it is fair to say that there are areas that can be worked on, and the work is going on. I think there are a lot of things have improved, but there are things that can more happen. I think, not just setting up businesses, but how you change businesses, how you close businesses, what happens if the businesses fail, how you wrap it up, and etc. So there's a journey, how the funding, how can that be improved? So the more we will add to investor confidence and reliability, the more attractive. Back to you, Mohammed.
Thank you, Sajid. And back to Mr. Badr again. So Mr. Badr, tax is one of the points any new investor will keep it as one of his points in his agenda. So what are the tax incentives that differentiate Qatar from other countries, especially here in the region?
Thank you, Mohammed, and thank you, Sajid. Qatar offers really a fairly low tax rate to non-hydrocarbon sectors in an effort to boost these sectors and help diversify the country income. We believe that a low tax combined with a highly subsidized services is an attractive package that investors will find appealing, and we noticed a growing number of subscribed non-local taxpayers, which could suggest that our efforts are working to attract investors, and we continually monitor our efforts to make sure our taxes do not become a hurdle for any potential investor. Going back to the tax exemption, we offer tax exemptions to all potential investors who submit their applications and prove potential strategic gains. Such strategic gains are not limited to a sector. However, we leave it to the investor to prove that worthiness of tax exemption for the specific sector. At the international level, there have been calls for doubt about the effectiveness of certain tax incentives for investments, including free zones and tax exemptions, and for providing solid evidence of their ineffectiveness. Other voices increasingly defending and defining in recent times speak of the damaging consequences that the tax race to the bottom has had on tax revenues and the tax base of countries. So in the new international context, to add on Mr. Hamad talks at the beginning of his presentation, so tax incentives are for investment are perceived negatively and have the opposite effect to that expected. Instead of encouraging investment, they discourage foreign investors who increasingly fear retaliation from the countries where they reside. So this is from both sides, from exemptions locally and international, from the international level. And actually from GTA perspective, we are really working on such reform and coping with the international new commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Badr. And my last question in my agenda will be to Mr. Naif Ifridi from the Qatar Free Zones Authority. So my question is, Mr. Naif, what would be some of the key drivers benefit for organizations who set up their businesses within the Qatar Free Zone Authority?
Thank you, Mohammed, for saving us for last. And thank you, everyone, for this enjoyable discussion. So first of all, I'd like to have this as a form of a conversation between us and the audience. And I know that there are many businesses here who are quite keen and interested to know about the jurisdiction in Qatar and as a whole, and the other jurisdictions such as QFC, QSTP, or us, Qatar Free Zone Authority. And my input here would be on three primary things: who are we and what we do. The second thing is what is our expectation from the investors. And the third thing, which is related to a question that you raised previously, which is what can we do more in the regulatory space. Given that I had regulations, we could speak more about that. So first of all, we are an operator of two free zones, RBF and UAH. I won't go to the lengthy name to avoid confusion, but basically the two free zones are adjacent to both the airport and the seaport. They have bonded access to both, where businesses could operate freely. And from the emerging clusters in those free zones, we have noticed an abundance of specialized logistics providers and specialized, fast-moving activities within both the airport adjacent zone and the seaport adjacent zone, where more industrial activities are planned and are taking place in the seaport adjacent zone, where we also have our own port, our own mini port that is within the free zone itself, not the general Hamad, but also our own. So this is in general about what are our free zones. We provide different services, offerings to those investors. Whether or not they want to operate a service, they would be given office spaces. Whether or not they want to operate in a light industrial unit, we have pre-built units that can be fitted to the specific need of each investor. And whether or not they want to develop their own land, they need to follow, the normal business procedure, and then they would be considered for a land plot that they would develop by themselves, acquire the financing for, etc., etc. So the second thing, what is our expectation from the investors, is basically several pillars, so to speak, to have them more integrated with the mainland, to have them in terms of operations and business deals, so that they can complement what's already taking place in the local economy, to have them more integrated and export oriented. They're more aiming towards adding value to regional markets. We are basically, surrounded by around 2 billion people in a matter of hours. So if they are export oriented, they have a higher chance. Just going back to our physical space, it's quite limited. So, it's 2 free zones, less than 10 kilometers as a whole, developed and non-developed space. So it's quite a limited space for us to operate. Other than that, their integration with the local economy, their export orientation, the capital expenditure that they are hoping to spend, the skilled labor force that they are hoping to bring or acquire or hire from the local market. We have many companies who are asking us where could they get a certain skill from the market. We have the relevant programs in such universities, or etc. So you could see that the puzzle pieces are quite more integrated than what one might expect from having an initial look. Investors coming here asking about tax, asking about cost, and also asking about what skill they could acquire from the people who are in the labor market. And finally, what can we do from a regulatory perspective is what we have done in the past and will continue to do in the future, and we have several cases around that, is by consulting our own population, our own investors on some of the regulations that we are adopting and we are hoping to adopt. So, for example, as you may know, we have 2 large multinational companies, Google and Microsoft, operating in free zone, and having the proper regulations set up in place has been a task that involved us, the Communication Regulatory Authority of the state, and those 2 investors to get collaborate on a regulation that would serve everyone's interests and make sure the dynamics are in place between us and the investors. They are comfortable operating with us, and we're comfortable having them here and put the proper regulations that we have set the expectation for them to abide by. So all of this has been done in full transparency and in a duly time manner, discussed with the relevant stakeholders, and the result of that is quite positive. We intend to do that with other regulations as we move on. If you can go to our website, you could see them in the resources section, QFZA.gov.qa, and there you could apply to be an investor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Naif. I think it's a very also insightful and useful information you have given to us. So let me go to the question came from our audience today. And my first question would be, it came from Terry Kowal. I think it's a very good question, and it's to all panelists. So her question is, how is Qatar developing its regulatory regime to cope with digitalization of commerce? For example, e-contracts, cryptocurrency, blockchain.
So I'm happy, Mohammed, to take it if you want me to take it. Pick this one up. So I think for the question, it's really an interesting one. In fact, the transformation in terms of legislation has happened, quite some time ago. I mean, I would say 5-6 years ago. We have issued a number of laws actually that would regulate how, for example, e-contracts, how it would regulate e-signatures, transactions that could be done, could be conducted in a digital format. for example, a lot of ministries and institutions have switched basically from physical signatures to digital signatures on products and documents that they issue. So there have been a lot of developments on the legislative side, and I think Qatar as a very well developed has a very well developed IT infrastructure. It can easily basically invest in these things and get very good results out of them. So yes, we do support that type of activities. E-commerce is another thing. Also, we do have a law on e-commerce that regulates basically a number of aspects of the businesses, and it has been implemented for quite some time now.
Thank you, Mr. Nasser, for answering the question. So my next question would be, and I think everyone is asking about this question, will VAT be implemented by 2022?
Yes, please, if you allow me to answer here. And
yes, Mr. Badr, go ahead.
Yes, actually, I have been asked this question on daily basis. And it's a really interesting question. Actually, about the VAT, still Qatar didn't pick any date to impose the VAT, so it's still under the regulatory procedures. So we don't know the exact date to impose the VAT, but as we know that Qatar has signed the GCC Unified VAT Agreement, so it is on the track, but the date is still not defined.
Thank you, Mr. Badr, for this. One more question also regarding tax, which is there are a lot of rumors that GCC countries are introducing personal individual income tax within Oman, recently announcing that they are indeed going so. Is this something that Qatar is also considering? Or
No, never. And it will never be considered.
Okay, so it's short, sharp, clear answer. No planning for a personal income tax.
Yeah. No.
Okay. I have another question, and I think Mr. Naif might want to take it. Okay, sorry, someone pulled out the question. So let me see other question we have, other new questions. Okay, so question came from, okay, what incentive exists for beef and beef products from Botswana to Qatar in terms of trade finance? We would like to connect with local Qatari chain for value in addition to Qatar. So I think this question is mainly about someone who wants to invest in Qatar, working in beef products, Botswana. So I think he can.
Mohammed, this may be a question for IPA Qatar, how they can connect these people to who they want. So I think we don't have somebody from IPA Qatar on the panel, but my suggestion would be that they should get in touch with IPA Qatar.
Yeah.
Hi, Sajid. Hi, Sajid.
Hi, Hamad.
Hi.
Can you go over the question again, please? And from
so the question is, what incentive exists for beef products from Botswana to Qatar in terms of trade finance?
Right. Okay. In terms of, I don't know, are you able to hear me clearly?
I think, Hamad, it's still, it might be a device issue. I think your voice comes clearer than it cuts, but please go ahead.
So if you're able to hear me clearly, in terms of incentives, in Qatar, we do have, just let me know if you're still able to hear me, otherwise I will put up my headset.
I think best will be if you can put up your headset. I think it'll be much better.
Right, okay, maybe we can take another question and then come back to this one.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so the next question came is, can I hire non-Qatari auditor to audit Qatar Free Zone or QFZA company accounting? So many here, Sajid, I think this could be for you. So it's regarding audit. So I think the question is, can they hire an auditor not exist in Qatar to do the audit for Qatar Free Zone Authority or QFC companies?
If I could answer on the free zone.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so any auditor that audits financial records needs to be set up here in Qatar, approved and registered and licensed here in Qatar for them to operate. QFC could answer for their own, but I think they also have their own pre-qualified auditors.
So thank you, Naif. So in short, just the interest of time, we have a regime here for registering auditors, so incorporating audit firms, and we have another regime for those who would like to be approved auditors, so they can be appointed by other QFC companies as their auditors.
Thank you, Naif, and thank you, Nasser, for answering this question. So my last question would be, 100% foreign holding is permitted only through QFZ and QFC, or even for companies registered outside QFZ and QFC?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
So many here are asking about if someone can establish 100% foreign investment outside the Qatar Free Zone and outside the Qatar Financial Centre.
As in establishing a company that's fully owned by an entity outside of the free zone, as a branch, for example. I'll answer the different scenarios. They can set up a company here that's fully owned elsewhere. They can set up a company here that's fully owned by an individual that is not a resident of Qatar by the time of establishment. They could partly own it with fully foreign ownership, as in not have a Qatari partner. But this is one of the conditions that they need to provide us, but there are many prerequisites to ensure the value of this company and its activities and its integration with the local market, etc., that I explained earlier, that they could inquire about. But in short, yes.
I think another part of the question, if you allow me, just to add a little bit to what you have said, is the foreign ownership. So I think I understand the question as I'm reading it, that is, can non-Qataris own 100% of the setups or the corporate structures that they create in either the Free Zone Authority or the Qatar Financial Centre? And the answer is simply yes. Is there any other place in the state of Qatar where you can set up a business and own it up to 100%? The answer is also yes. There is the mainland, as we call it, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, where also non-Qataris can own up to 100%. You have also the Qatar Science and Technology Park, and you have also the Media City, which is focused on media outlets and companies. If this answers the question, I'm not sure.
Mohammed, if I can make a quick comment before we go back to Hamad, if he has put his headphones on, but just to extend to what Naif and Nasser has already said, it's not only a theoretical answer that you can set up 100% owned entities in the state. There are numerous examples where 100% owned entities have already been set up in the state of Qatar. Obviously, they are in specified sectors with a business case that they have to put in front of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. But there are numerous examples in the very recent last 2-3 years of 100% owned entities being set up in the state.
Yes, Sajid, I think if I may just add to my colleagues from the Free Zones and Qatar Financial Centre, foreign ownership is possible in Qatar across all sectors, including the recently reformed sector of real estate, where international investors can even buy real estate across many different districts of Qatar. And you can also choose to buy a freehold or a leasehold property, depending on the district where you can invest in. And to each one comes a certain set of incentives. For example, if you do invest over $1 million in a property in Qatar, you get a permanent residency in Qatar You also get free healthcare and tuition to your immediate family and across the public healthcare and educational system. So I think this is one of the incentives that are very interesting in foreign ownership of real estate. And also just across all sectors, it is possible, like my colleagues mentioned. And now if you can repeat the other question, I'm sorry, my headset was not on. I realize I have some issues. I had some issues in the sound, but I believe that now it is clear.
Thank you, Hamad, again. So the question is, what incentive exists for beef products from Botswana to Qatar in terms of trade finance?
Right. Okay. So in general, the incentives that are available in Qatar, there is multiple sets of incentives. There are some generic incentives, then tailored incentive schemes available for international investors, and then there are ones that may be more applicable to the beef industry. If you look, for example, at the generic incentives that are available, these are the ones we've covered earlier in the presentation, which is the 100% foreign ownership, the very competitive corporate tax rate, the zero income tax for the owners and for the employees working in those companies. And then the Investment Promotion Agency does offer some financial and non-financial incentives to investors, but these are done based on a very thorough assessment of the impact that they return on the economy. And also, it just goes through a very thorough evaluation process. And then these incentives can be in different forms or shapes, and usually they are done on a reimbursement for expenditures made in the local economy. And now to be more, to zoom in more about the beef-related incentives, I believe that there is a lot of incentives that Qatar brings in its geographical location, where you can export your products in the beef industry from the free zones or from other platforms within Qatar. You can export directly to the region. And I believe if there is any further questions, I can take them on the email, which I have added in the chat earlier. And I apologize for the issues in the sound before that. Thank you very much.
No worries, Hamad, and thanks for taking those questions. For the sake of time, that conclude our moderation and the question and answers. So I'd like to end by thank Mr. Naif, Mr. Sajid, Mr. Nasser, and Mr. Badr for taking the questions. And over to you, Sajid, for the closure.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think without further ado, I think we are just on time. Maybe we overshot by 1 or 2 minutes. But I want to say a big thank you to all our participants who actually participate in the session today. People on the call who have shared their questions and showed interest and taken time to participate in this session. A big thank you to you. Hope it was informative. We look forward to your feedback, and when you see the guide, if there's any further, then there'll be individual contacts that you can get in touch with. A big thank you to all the participants in this session, IPA Qatar and its team, QFC, Nasser and Badr from GTA and Naif from QFZA. I think it just added to the richness and the sort of collaborative offering that comes from Qatar as a destination of choice. So a big thank you to all of you. Hope the session was informative and useful, and we look forward to your feedback, and have a great day. Thank you very much.